So what happens when a person eats a candy bar which is made up of carbohydrate, dia ada fat and a small amount of protein. Okay, kalau kita fikirkan kan, does all the energy contained get oxidized immediately for fuel or does some get stored? If it gets stored, does it get stored as body fat? So those simple questions have surprisingly complicated answer. In the fat state, the most important hormone kita tahu tadi apa dia? Insulin. So and the body's energy priority is to delivering glucose from carbohydrate containing food. So the red blood cells, okay, and the cells of the central nervous system cannot store glucose. So some of the glucose from fruit, for example, ni dalam kata carbohydrate dekat dalam candy bar tu, gets utilized immediately by those cells. But much of the carbohydrates consumed doesn't get used immediately for energy. Instead, it is stored in muscle and liver cells as a glycogen. So the body is looking out for both its short-term and long-term energy needs. When non-obese people are in energy balance, that is energy intake is equal with the energy expenditure, the carbohydrate is primarily used for immediate energy or glycogen storage. And essentially, none is converted to fatty acid and stored as fat. The reason is the hormone insulin sebenarnya. In some respects, insulin is a traffic cop sebenarnya. Okay, dia adalah traffic cop, dia adalah polis traffic yang dia akan direct the flow of the metabolic traffic. So insulin, they affect cell membranes, so glucose can be taken up by the cells and used immediately for energy. It also favors the storage of glycogen dengan activate the enzymes yang helps store the glycogen and inhibit the enzyme that break the glycogen down. So insulin also has an enormous effect on fat storage and creates an environment in which fat from food can be readily stored as body fat. In this example, most of the fat in the candy bar is probably stored in the adipose cells. The fat storage friendly environment created in the fat or kita panggil sebagai absorptive state no longer exists in the post-absorptive states. This is because insulin concentration masa dia dah jadi low and insulin is no longer acting as a traffic cop. So instead, the several other hormones are now directing the traffic. Seperti liver glycogen is broken down to provide a slow, steady stream of glucose to the blood. The body is now using the fat that was previously stored in adipose cells for energy. Some of the candy bar fat that was stored in fat cells is now coming out of those cells and being used by other cells for energy. For the non-obese person in energy balance, carbohydrate and fat store will always be in flux, but that person's overall body composition is relatively stable. What happened to the amino acid from the small amount of protein in the candy bar? In the fat state, the amino acid will go to the liver and this organ will determine how they will be used. Most will be used for anabolic function such as building and repairing its tissues, not catabolic functions such as using the amino acid for energy. When daily energy intake is balanced with energy expenditure, the carbohydrate and fat in food provide the energy that the body needs. Okay, so the breaking down of amino acid for energy is very low and also will be the last priority for the body. Next, okay, the last one is on the oxygen consumption. Okay, so the preceding section kita describe macam mana carbohydrate, fat, protein can be metabolized aerobically via the oxidative phosphorylation energy system, which all can be broken down chemically to form compound that can be oxidized by the Krebs cycle, and the removed electrons are subsequently used in the electron transport chain to phosphorylate ADP to form ATP. And we know that as part of this metabolic process, carbon dioxide is produced and oxygen is used as the final electron acceptor. So therefore, aerobic metabolism ultimately depends on the adequate of supply of oxygen. Kita tahu ya, bila we call as the body needs a constant supply of ATP, and at rest the vast majority of this energy diprovided by the oxidative phosphorylation, atau kita panggil sebagai the aerobic energy system. Any increase in activity, kita akan require increase in energy expenditure. Kalau which turn result is an increase in the activity of oxidative phosphorylation. And an increased utilization of the aerobic energy system, dia akan menyebabkan kita akan meningkatkan penggunaan oksigen, kan, dan the amount of carbohydrate dioxide juga akan terhasil. When we talk about maximal exercise, if exercise intensity is increased to a level that is below the person's maximal ability, itu kita panggil sebagai submaximal, and continue for some time. Oxygen consumption rises to a level that provides sufficient energy support that level of activity and then plateau. Saya akan tunjuk kat sini. Okay. So, for example, this one. So, kalau kita tengok kat sini, okay, kalau kita duduk the exercise intensity kita meningkat to a level that is below the person maximal ability. Okay, maknanya itu adalah tahap yang dia boleh go for the exercise intensity and continue for some time. So the oxygen consumption rises to a level that provides sufficient energy to support that level of activity and then dia akan plateau. Dia akan jadi plateau kat sini. Okay. So think of an exercise session lasting 30 minutes, such as when you do for jogging 30 minutes. At the onset of exercise, oxygen consumption increases. Okay, you berlari, oxygen consumption increases. And if the exerciser, you all maintain very steady pace, then oxygen consumption will reach a steady state, kita panggil. Okay. Once the person stops their exercise task, the need for increased energy is removed and oxygen consumption will gradually return to what we call as a pre-exercise level. Okay. Kalau kita tahu, if exercise begins after 5 minutes of resting, okay, bila exercise begin after 10 and it takes couple of minutes, okay, it takes a couple of minutes, okay, of oxygen consumption to reach the steady state level. Okay, if one consider the large number of steps they are required in oxidative phosphorylation and the need to transport oxygen to the exercise muscle, it is understandable that some degree of lag time exists between the onset of exercise and the ability of the anaerobic energy system to fully meet this elevated energy requirement. And where does the energy comes from to support the exercise activity during this lag time? Okay, fortunately, the anaerobic energy system, the creatine phosphate, tadi kan kita bincang tadi, anaerobic glycolysis, exists to provide ATP in this type of circumstances, dalam keadaan ini. This is yet another example of the interaction between the various energy system. Because ATP energy has been borrowed from the anaerobic energy system for what is primarily an aerobic exercise activity. So the term oxygen deficit is typically used to describe this lag in oxygen consumption at the onset of exercise. Okay. Lag in oxygen consumption at the onset of exercise. Also, kalau you tengok kat sini, okay, you tengok dekat figure ni, okay, exercise is stopped at minute 10. Okay. And oxygen consumption begins to decline immediately, but doesn't reach its original pre-exercise level for several minutes. Even though exercise has ceased and the person is now resting, kalau kita tengok oxygen consumption remains slightly elevated for some period of time after exercise. This gradual decline in oxygen consumption after exercise has historically been referred to as oxygen debt, but is now more accurately termed as the excess post-exercise oxygen consumption ataupun terpanggil sebagai EPOC. So EPOC is refers to the gradual decline in oxygen consumption after exercise has stopped, which is the oxygen consumption remains slightly elevated for some period after exercise. And if an incremental exercise test continue to increase in intensity, okay, what happened? Oxygen consumption will continue to increase as well as up to a point. When this point is reached, if exercise intensity is increased again, oxygen consumption does not rise any further. Rather, it plateau. Okay, I will show this one. Okay. So bila you do exercise kan, kalau you bila kita test your punya oxygen, consume tak kat situ saja. Okey, ni kita panggil sebagai VO2 max ataupun oxygen consumption ataupun kita panggil sebagai maximal oxygen consumption, very maximum. The exercise physiology term is VO2 max. So a person's maximal ability to consume oxygen is a reflection of one's capacity to take up oxygen from the atmosphere, circulate it through the body, and use oxidative phosphorylation in muscles, and also uh, other tissues to produce ATP. So this ability is influenced by genetics, somehow age, gender, and a host of other factors. The most influential of which is aerobic exercise training. Maximal oxygen consumption atau VO2 max is not a static figure. It can be increased markedly if a person engage in regular aerobic exercise or can diminish over time if a person is sedentary. Okay. There are two common ways to express oxygen consumption in absolute or relative terms. Absolute oxygen consumption refers to the total amount of oxygen consumed every 60 seconds. In addition to aerobic training, maximal oxygen consumption is largely influenced by body size. So larger people, they will consume more oxygen. In order to draw accurate comparison between people of different body size, VO2 max is often expressed in terms of relative to body weight per kilogram, milliliter per kilogram body weight per minute or ml per kilogram per minute. A sport nutrition professional should be familiar with approximate value for maximum oxygen consumption. As kalau kita tengok dekat sini, sorry kalau kita tengok dekat table ni. So sebenarnya as a sport nutrition professional, dia kena tahu dengan familiar dengan this kind of value. Okay, another approach to understanding of VO2 max is to look at the normative values and percentile rank obtained by testing large number of people. So these are the example of relative value for VO2 max expressed in the relative term as a milliliter of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute. Jadi kalau untuk lelaki dia dikategori sebagai health fitness kalau they have a relative value for VO2 max is 35. Okay, kalau perempuan is 32.5. This is for the example. Okay, last but not least, okay, in terms of oxygen consumption, okay, also influenced by different skeletal muscle fiber types. Skeletal muscle fibers have a range of anatomical, biochemical, and performance characteristics. Some muscle fiber types produce high amount of force, produce that force very quickly, and are known as a fast twitch fiber. Because of fast twitch fiber produce a high amount of force quickly, they utilize a large amount of ATP quickly and therefore must rely on what we call a creatine phosphate and also anaerobic glycolysis, our fastest energy system to replace ATP. So fast twitch fibers, sometimes referred to as a type 2B fibers, are also called as a glycolytic for their reliance on anaerobic energy system. It is not hard to discern that these fibers have a lesser ability to use oxidative phosphorylation and therefore to consume oxygen. Individuals who have a higher percentage of fat twitch muscle fiber will have a limitation to the amount of oxygen they can consume and will have a limited ability to increase their VO2 max consumption with training. On the other hand, slow twitch muscle fiber, they produce less force and they can produce that force more slowly. So this is making them ideal for what we call endurance type activities. Because force is produced more slowly, these fibers, also known as the type 1 fibers, can take advantage of the slower process of oxidative phosphorylation as the energy system to replenish the ATP. These fibers have a greater capillary network, more myoglobin, larger number and larger size mitochondria, and greater oxidative enzyme activity than fast twitch fibers. They greatly enhance their capacity to use our aerobic energy system and consume oxygen. An individual with a higher percentage of slow twitch fiber will display an enhanced ability to consume oxygen and increase their VO2 max with training. So this all in the part 1. So you can go all the summary of this topic, energy systems and exercise. Thank you.